dignitaries for this very informative discussion that we're going to have regarding fentanyl. Ladies and gentlemen, this is our distinguished panel of dignitaries. I'd like to give them a hand. Would ask that you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by an invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Blessing us this evening, giving us the invocation, Pastor Miles.
Let us bow our heads in prayer, will you please? We thank thee, O holy God, that in thee there is plenteous grace to cover all. Be thou strength in weakness, O merciful God. Be with us in this forum that we are having on this evening. We beg you, we thank you for all that you've allowed us to do. Thank you so much for Congressman Emmanuel and Congressman Mark that is leading this great effort. Oh God, give us the strength to endure whatever consequence we may attend, for we know the reward of faith and obedience is always clear and understanding. Accomplish in us a holiness of life. Grant us, God, thy keeping power. When they may be tempted to stray from thee, our first love, and rebel against thy will, direct us to hold a firm grasp upon reality of thy presence and a greater assurance upon your loving care. Thank you, Lord and Master. Amen.
Please be seated. Thank you, panel. Thank you. Please welcome Superintendent of the Center School District, Dr. Yolanda Cargile.
Good evening and welcome to Center High School. I want to start with a gracious thank you to Congressman Cleaver and Alford for hosting this wonderful event tonight to bring awareness to this important topic. Thank you for each of our panel members who are serving and sharing their own stories and the work that they're doing to address the matter. But I also would like to thank each person sitting in the audience for sharing your time with us this evening to learn, to engage, and to take this information back to your circles of support. I appreciate you being here. It's a pleasure to be able to host an event, again, to bring awareness to this important topic that each of us can learn more about. Again, welcome to Center School District. It's a pleasure to serve. Yolanda Cargile. At this time, I'll turn it over to Congressman Cleaver and Congressman Alford. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Cargile. It's certainly a pleasure to be here on stage at my wife's alma mater, the home of the Yellow Jackets, Center High School. Leslie's here today joining us. I won't tell you what year she graduated, but she's very proud of this school, and I'm so glad that we're having this here today. You know, we get a lot of criticism out in public that why aren't you ever doing anything bipartisan? And while this is an election year, politics tonight do not matter. This is about people. This is about saving lives. This is not a Democrat issue nor a Republican issue. This is an American issue. I have one goal here tonight. It's to save one life from something we have learned tonight. It's an honor to be here tonight and to have from our delegation the former mayor of Kansas City, Missouri, who I interviewed many times when I was working at Fox 4, and now he is a colleague in Congress. Representative Emmanuel Cleaver.
Thank you very much, Congressman. I appreciate you going way beyond what would be required to bring us all together here this evening. I'm also very proud. My youngest son graduated here at Center High School, and I appreciate you very much because he was able to go to college for free. And so, I'm anybody's parents who can't afford to go to college, send them here at Center, and they'll be able to go to college for free. Is that right, Principal? I'm also here because I think we have to deal with this issue. It's not one that's comfortable, but it's one that is essential in terms of the emphasis we place on drug abuse and fentanyl in particular. A lot of people get into these drugs because their lives are in darkness, and unfortunately, when they start using these drugs, the darkness enters inside them and will destroy them. So this is something that we need to do, and I appreciate your vision in bringing us together. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. In a few moments, you're going to meet the woman who really was the impetus for this and hear her story. But first, just a few facts to set the stage for us here tonight. The numbers are really staggering in America. In 2022, those are the latest numbers that we have. More than 109,000 of our fellow citizens died from fentanyl poisoning or overdoses. Think about this, ladies and gentlemen. That is the equivalent of a plane crash a day in America, killing 300 of our fellow citizens. If that were to happen, you don't think the FAA would shut down air traffic immediately? They would. And yet, what is being done about the fentanyl crisis in America? What is being done to stop the dealers? What is being done to educate our young people? We're not going to find solid answers tonight, but this is about a discussion. This is about a chance for some here tonight to continue their grieving process. And I think for the rest of us to find answers and to wake up as fellow citizens, because we are all in this together. I don't care what your socioeconomic background is. I don't care what part of the metro you come from or the state. We are all in this as Americans, and we have to find solutions before we lose an entire generation of young people. The rate of fentanyl-related overdose deaths increased by a staggering 23% in just 1 year. Its potency is horrifying, and is often unknowingly mixed with other drugs, leading to these accidental overdoses, or I prefer to call them poisonings, really. Our youth are bearing the brunt of this crisis in America. The average age of those who die from fentanyl overdoses or poisonings is just 31.5 years of age. Folks, it's time to stand up. It's time to unite. It's time to fight this devastating problem. By addressing the root causes, enforcing stricter regulations, providing support to those affected, we can at least begin to heal. And together we can take the necessary steps to make something happen in America. With that said, it's time to meet our incredible panel of dignitaries to share with us each of their missions in combating these dangerous drugs in our communities across the great state of Missouri. The panel will introduce themselves and give a brief summary of their role and how fentanyl has impacted them, their agency, as they fight against this crisis affecting our families and our neighborhoods. And let's start with our friend, the Kansas City Police Chief, Stacy Graves. We'll go down the left side of the panel and cross over to Pastor Miles, and then come back this direction. Chief Graves.
Good evening. I am thankful to be part of this important conversation. This, along with some of the other challenges that we have in our city, in our states, in our country, affects everyone. This is a situation that does not affect just one age group.
not one section of our city or our community, but everyone. And it's something that tonight, it's such an important conversation to get the word out so that we can save more lives. So thank you so much for having the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department here. I appreciate it, and I have some of our experts here at KCPD that work day in and day out on the fentanyl crisis here in Kansas City.
I am Deputy Chief Doug Niemeyer. I am in charge of the Investigations Bureau, which includes all violent crimes and our Special Investigations Division. So all of the drug investigations fall underneath my bureau. I have with me Major Jim Buck. He'll introduce himself in a minute. He's in charge of the drug use. But what I want to, a staggering thing that I want to say is, and this affects all of us again, it affects me, it affects everyone in our department, it affects everybody in our city. I was in the drug interdiction unit when I was a sergeant. That's when we first discovered what fentanyl was. It was being transported across the country. We didn't know what it was. But today, and just this past month, the amount of fentanyl that we have recovered just here in Kansas City is up by 212% compared to what we were last year in 2023.
Deputy Chief, thank you so much. Major, and everyone else, if you can pull the mic up closer, I think having it far away is picking up the ambient noise from the speaker. So we'll have less feedback if you talk more directly in the mic. We'll see if that works.
Sorry, thanks for having me. My name is Major James Buck. I'm in charge of the Special Investigations Division. That includes the Drug Enforcement Unit. Glad to be here. Fentanyl's a constant topic of discussion in my office. I'll admit, I took this role about a year ago, and the numbers I see come across are just staggering. To put it in perspective, as Colonel Niemeyer mentioned, we've had a tremendous increase already in January. Last year, we interdicted and seized the equivalent of about 150,000 fentanyl pills. And that does not include other narcotics that were seized that might have had fentanyl laced with them. So it's, the numbers are staggering, and it's just kind of an overwhelming issue that's going to require a lot of cooperation with a lot of different people.
Good evening. I'm Deputy Attorney General Clifton Davis. I am also the director for the anti-human trafficking unit for the Attorney General's office in the state of Missouri. Why that is relevant is what we've noticed is when it comes to the enslavement of victims, especially children, they're often exposed to this dangerous drug and often unaware of that exposure initially. And it's very difficult when it comes to not just the victim recovery, but victim rehabilitation. And so that requires a lot of coordination amongst the state agencies and also the NGOs, and that's something that we're looking to improve on.
Hello. My name is Representative Sherry Galley. I knew about fentanyl, but I didn't do as much as I do now. And it's thanks to Sarah and thanks to Mark. I participated in the first fentanyl forum that he had in Belton, and my mind was blown. And at that point, there were several parents that were very upset, and I made a vow to them that I would try and bring a bill forward in the state of Missouri that put forth murder charges for fentanyl distributors. Not for people taking fentanyl, the person down the street or the girl that took a pill by mistake, but for fentanyl distributors. What I did not know at that time, this year I did do 2 bills, but there's so much in a bill, I want to get it right. Because when I did the bills, I sent them to both of them. I sent them to the Kansas City Police Department. I sent them to the Highway Patrol. I sent them to 2 sheriff's departments, and each of them came back. A couple of them said they're fine, but there were unintended consequences. And one thing that I learned my first year, this is my second year, is that a lot of people push bills through, and there's unintended consequences that you don't think about. So if I do this, I want to do it right, so I'm still working on that. One thing I would ask you to is, when you leave here tonight, if you can tell 5 to 10 people about this, and then ask them to tell 5 to 10 people about this, because the only way that we are going to stop this is to get awareness out. So, and with that, I will move on.
Bridget Schaefer, Director of Jackson County Public Health. So in 2013 really is when we began to see that sharp increase in opioid overdose deaths nationally. And in 2017, it was declared a public health emergency.
Can you move your mic just a little bit closer, please?
Yes, thank you. In Missouri alone, there were a little over 1,300 overdose deaths in 2017, and the most recent data was almost double that in 2022. So we are continuing to see that major increase in opioid overdose deaths that are non-heroin opioids. But most recently at Jackson County Public Health, we are distributing free Narcan. You can get that outside of the table, and I'll talk more about that later, as well as fentanyl test strips. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Sarah Check. I am the health director at the Cass County Health Department. So I am your neighbor to the south. Like Bridget brought up, Cass County is not immune from the effects of fentanyl either. Since 2019, fatal and non-fatal opioid overdose events have been rising in Cass County. To give you kind of an idea about what that looks like, in 2018, 37% of the fatal overdoses in Cass County were related to opioids. Fast forward to 2022, 73% of the fatal overdoses in Cass County were related to opioids, and none of those involved heroin. So you're looking more at fentanyl and medication. So with the Cass County Health Department, our big focus has been on education and access to harm reduction tools. So in this past year, we have worked with some of our community partners to set up distribution points throughout our county, distribution boxes that include Narcan, fentanyl test strip, educational materials. In Cass County, we have 9 of them located throughout our county, so we're very proud of that. We have distributed about 3,200 boxes of Narcan through this program, and that's only since May when we started this initiative. We've also been partnering with our local libraries to provide opioid awareness and Narcan administration trainings. And later on you will see a bit of a demonstration on how to use the Narcan that is being provided to folks tonight.
I'm John Miles, pastor of Morning Star Church, Morning Star Youth and Family Life Center, Morning Star Senior Building. And we're very committed to the community. And by being so committed to the community, we see so much happening as it relates to fentanyl. One of the things that happened just about 2 months ago was the fact that there was a gentleman who passed away, had to rush him to the hospital, and he passed away because of fentanyl. And being really into the community, we're talking about where we do almost 1,000, see almost 1,000 people a week as it relates to food, as it relates to utility, court, and rent, and on and on. So we come in contact with people, and persons have really reached a point where they are having such problems with fentanyl and other drugs until they will come and sit down and talk with us about it. And so from that point, then we make an effort to see what we can do of trying to get them help, but sometimes it's too late.
Hi, I'm Margot Moeller. I'm the Director of Prevention Services at First Call. At First Call, we are the prevention resource center for the Missouri Department of Mental Health for Jackson, Cass, Lafayette, and Johnson counties in Missouri, meaning we provide prevention programming to anyone in our service area for free. So I'm lucky to be sitting amongst several First Call partners on this panel because it really does take a village. One of the things that I will say is that there is hope. Youth substance use is decreasing. My primary focus is that the risk is increasing. So while use is going down, the risk of use is going up. So if someone does choose to try drugs for their first time, it's much riskier than it was 5, 10 years ago. So we are doing a lot on harm reduction right now, but also working with kids as early as kindergarten to start instilling in them to make healthy choices, things like that. And I'll get into that more in a bit.
My name is Max Muller. I am in recovery. I'm a recovering opioid addict. I am coming up on 7 years sober. Today, I run a program. I'm the director of the Full Circle program in Kansas City, and we're basically the front lines of the fentanyl crisis. So I would say that the primary impact I've seen is I've been to more funerals than I care to admit over the last couple of years. Kids that were in our program or before our program. So, I mean, it's just everywhere, right? We have kids coming in, you know, we have a support group. I run a support group. That's what Full Circle is, a support group for young people and, you know, buddies and friends, and it's all the time, right? It's a pretty nonstop thing in the high schools nowadays. So, you know, what I am very grateful for today is that I get to be a part of the solution and help kids find the other side. So.
And we're not related. It just worked out this way.
Hi, I'm Roxanne Glover. I'm the nurse here at Center High School. Welcome to Center High School, everyone. Glad to have you. We always think that it'll never be us. And unfortunately, in October 22, it was us. Fortunately, I did have Narcan in the building. We just got it January of that year. And so fortunately, we did have Narcan in the building to save that student. Otherwise, we would certainly have had a different outcome. Learning from that, because we, you know, everyone sends your students to our school and expect us to keep them safe, and that is what we want to do. So learning from that, we now have Narcan in our elementary schools and our middle schools and high schools, because, you know, your elementaries have older siblings, or it could just be in the house. They want to share it with their friends. So just to be on the safe side, we have it in all the buildings. Vaping is big. Vaping is big in high schools and middle schools, probably some elementaries. So whenever we have students who we have to discuss vaping or we call them with a vape, we have the discussion about fentanyl. That what you have, what you're getting, so half of them don't even know. They'll tell you, I didn't know what was in it. They didn't tell me that it had THC in it, or I thought it was just a nicotine vape. So these kids really, truly don't know what they're vaping or what they're taking. And so we try to have that discussion, not just as a nurse or an administrator, but as parents. We care about the kids, and we want them to know that it's not about you getting in trouble, it's about you keeping safe. So we're happy to be a part of this, and we just look forward to the partnerships that we have.
My name is Ashley McCunniff, and I'm the supervisor over the crisis intervention team with the Kansas City Police Department. My role when the police department is a little different. We respond to individuals that have substance use, that have maybe overdosed, things like that. We take mental health professionals out to people's homes. The patrol officers will respond to calls where there's an overdose, a suicide attempt, something like that. And then I have a unit, I have 4 officers. We actually take mental health professionals out to individuals' homes and try to get them engaged in services and get them the right resources. We partner with First Call, we partner with a lot of groups across the city, Heartland Behavioral. The individuals at Relief, their main focus is substance use, but like Ms. Glover said, not everybody intentionally uses fentanyl, so we try to get those mental health resources out there in case it is accidental, in case there are unintentional consequences that came with substance use. We try to get them the right resources.
I'm Nathan Hopper. I'm a division chief with the Kansas City, Missouri Fire Department. I've been in this business for 17 years, and the first couple of years it was very uncommon to encounter opioid overdoses, but then things changed around 2013, and it began almost like a tsunami, just a very subtle disturbance far offshore. But then as the years progressed, that wave got bigger and bigger and bigger until it was an absolute wall of devastation and destruction that just washed over the community. And that year was about 2020. That was the year when there was an unbelievable amount of human suffering. And in the role that I have now, we respond to all of those calls, those cardiac arrest calls. And the big turning point for me as a paramedic and a pre-hospital provider was having to do CPR on a middle school student that smoked fentanyl with their parent. It was having to make a phone call to a parent out of state and tell them that their child, their adult child, had suffered an overdose and was on their way to the hospital, and that the outcomes were probably not going to be good, and they need to get on the plane right now, and they need to come to Kansas City. And listening to the pain of that person's voice on the phone, and feeling that pain as a parent myself, and then remembering that that person told me, this is the phone call I knew I would get, but I hoped I never would. And so those words, they soak into you, right? If you're a human being and you care about your community and you care about others. And I said at that point, this has to stop. I don't have the power to make it stop, but part of our mission at the fire department is community risk reduction and community health improvement. If we could work ourselves out of a job, trust me, we would be the happiest people on earth. The reality is, we're never going to be out of work. And so I'm hoping that some meaningful change can happen so that I don't have to make those phone calls ever again. And parents don't have to get those phone calls. Because I've seen enough, and I don't want to see any more.
Hi, I'm Dan Cummings with the Jackson County Drug Task Force. First of all, I want to thank the Congress for putting this on. I think this is much needed. We need to get as much knowledge out that we can about this. I've been in drug investigations for over 28 of my last 33 years in police work, and this is the absolute worst I've seen. I went through the meth lab crisis. I thought it couldn't get any worse when I was wrong. The Jackson County Drug Task Force is a multi-jurisdictional drug task force made up of 14 different police agencies in Jackson County. So we work with every police department, basically in the metropolitan area, the FBI, DEA, Department of Homeland Security. Our top priority now is to try to slow the amount of drugs that are coming into Jackson County. I know initially the Drug Task Force was set up to combat, to get a unified response to the drug epidemic as it was in Jackson County. At that time, drug dealers would cross city lines, and so we thought we had a county-wide effort that would help, which it did. We've evolved since then, not only crossing city boundaries, but county boundaries, state boundaries, and even international boundaries. So this problem, I don't know what we're going to do or how we're going to get through this, but I can guarantee you that our top priority is stopping the flow of fentanyl, and we will, and my condolences go out to anyone that has a loved one that's overdosed or dies as a result of this drug.
My name is Greg Pratt. I'm a lieutenant with the Missouri State Highway Patrol. And throughout my entire career, much like Captain Cummings, I've been involved in some type of effort to combat drug use and drug distribution in the state of Missouri. That's taken me from coast to coast across the United States and as well as into Mexico at times during my career. A lot of times I think people recognize Missouri State Troopers and they're just thinking traffic tickets. And that's a big part of the job. And I'll tell you that we had over 900 traffic fatalities last year. And that has continuously been a problem in Missouri. But now we look at how many Missourians have died of fentanyl overdose. It was almost 2,858 people that died from fentanyl overdose. And when you consider that this is, traffic crashes used to be what we were worried about with our kids. And now it's, fentanyl is just so dangerous and it just grabs a hold of people. And even though it's just one chance, one opportunity, they take it and it could be fatal. So I'm really excited to see everybody that showed up, thank you to the audiences here. I hope that maybe we can come up with some solutions and spread the word about what we can do to get to left of bang on the timeline, just prevention. And like the fire department said, it would be great to work ourselves out of a job. I've got other things I'd like to do, but I'm so consumed by making sure that we get a handle on this that I'm just completely dedicated to that. And I can speak for everybody else that I work with as well. So thank you for setting this up, and thank you all for being here. I look forward to working here.
We want to commend and thank each of you and your teams for your fight and your dedication to your service, to the service, and everything far beyond imaginable, what each of you face every day and on what you are doing to fight against this fentanyl opioid crisis. Let's give all of our speakers a round of applause.
I think I've told you the story, and some of you out there know how this all started, where we got the idea to do these fentanyl forums. I'm like many of you. I'd heard of fentanyl. I hadn't known of anyone who had died from taking fentanyl, but I knew it was a growing problem. Our kids are a little bit older. Of course, they're not immune. No one is immune to it. But early last summer, I had to go to the License Bureau in Belton to get a tag for a truck. And I finished the transaction. This nice lady behind the little plexiglass there. By the way, it's a great license office. If you've never been down there, it's kind of a jewel of Cass County. And after I finished, the woman said, "Can I talk to you for a second?" I think, "Well, we've just been talking during this transaction." She says, "No, I need to tell you something." And so I stepped to the side of the plexiglass, and Sarah Eager started crying. The woman who had helped me get my tag for my truck broke down in tears and told me the story of losing her daughter the previous September from fentanyl poisoning. We talked for a good 5 or 10 minutes. Every eyeball in there was on us as we had this really intimate, personal conversation about her daughter and the loss. And the one thing Sarah said is, "I've got to find some meaning in this. I've got to do something with this loss to help other people." And I took that, I left, I went immediately back to our congressional office in Raymore, and I met with our staff and told them the story, and I said, "We've got to do something. We have got to do something to stop, or to at least curb the fentanyl crisis in America, to help our young people survive." So we came up with this idea of the fentanyl forums. We had our first one in Cass County about a month or two later. It was well attended. We did one in Boone County, in University of Missouri. The idea behind this, Congressman, is to do one in every congressional district in the state of Missouri and give this program to every congressman and woman in the United States House of Representatives so they can carry this program on and wake people up in their districts. And together as a nation, we can come together to help solve this crisis. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to hear firsthand the story of a new friend of mine and a great License Bureau employee, the mother of Lauren, Sarah Eagles.
First of all, I want to say thank you to the panel and everyone that has taken time to come here tonight. Congressman Alford and Congressman Cleaver, this is really important to me. This is Lauren. She died September 13th, 2022. She was 18 years old. She was my baby, and she didn't deserve to die from taking a pill that was laced with fentanyl. was so kind and so loving, and she would walk into a room and you would know she was there from her loud voice, and she demanded attention. She wanted everybody to see her, and when I came home and found her unconscious on the bathroom floor, my life changed forever. And as much as I would tell her to tone it down and to be quiet, we didn't have to dance to everything, I wish she was up here dancing right now and laughing her loud, obnoxious laugh that I'm pretty sure Max knows about. She didn't deserve to die from a $20 pill. She was so much more than that. And I miss her so much. I never thought it was gonna happen to me. And I vowed right then that I was going to start educating myself and start talking about it, because that was my problem, is I didn't educate myself. I was ashamed and I was embarrassed, and that has to go away, because you have to face it and you have to have the conversations, and they're tough and they suck, and going through your child's room and their car and everything they own is awful, but you have to do it and you have to be aware. And I don't know that being smarter about it, I could have saved her, because addiction is a very, very powerful demon. But I wish I would have known more, so maybe I could have helped her in different ways. I just know that at 45, I shouldn't have had to bury my daughter. And my granddaughter, who was 4 months old at the time, shouldn't have to grow up without her aunt. And that piece of my family that's always going to be missing shouldn't be missing. And I just, this is kind of what it's turned into. This is kind of my mission now. I would talk all day about it if people would listen, because I don't think it gets enough attention, because it has such a stigma, and people don't want to admit, parents don't want to admit that there's a problem. And we need to talk about it, and we need to have the hard conversations, and we need to go through our kids' phones and their stuff and try and save them. This is a whole generation that we're losing hundreds of kids at a time, and there has got to be something that we can do to help. So thank you everyone for coming here. I know it's tough, but I appreciate everybody's attendance here. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. To my immediate left is Laura Woody, a mom, a grandma, an advocate for lost voices of fentanyl, for grandparents raising grandchildren, moderator for both the Missouri and Kansas chapters of Drug-Induced Homicide Foundation. So let's hear now Laura Woody's testimony.
Hi, my son Jimmy Woody died of fentanyl poisoning at the age of 29. He did have substance use disorder. These are poisonings. These are not overdoses. There's no safe dose of illicit fentanyl or any other illicit drugs. Fentanyl has changed everything. This is not the same old war on drugs. This is not the same old opioid crisis. This is a whole new crisis, and it takes a multifaceted approach to save lives. We need law enforcement, we need treatment and recovery, we need harm reduction, we need prevention, we need parent education, we need education in the schools, awareness. We need it all to save lives, because the number of Americans that are dying from this is just phenomenal. And it's not just the generation that's dying right now. A month before my son died, we were awarded guardianship with my daughter's children, and I started a group called Grandparents Raising Grandchildren While Grieving the Loss of a Child, because these are two, you plan for retirement, you plan for your old age. I never planned on burying a child, and I never planned for raising my grandchildren. Individually, these are difficult challenges to face, and facing them together presents unique challenges that one would not think of. When my then 3-year-old grandson kept asking about how his Uncle Jimmy died, and he was trying to understand, that was how I created the Snow White meme that's hanging out there, because I tried to really just watch the movie Snow White, and that's, well, the bad man put something in something that killed him, like the evil queen put the poison in the apple, and then I thought, I'm going to make a meme out of this, so it's Snow White did not overdose. But even though the grandchildren I'm raising are not Jimmy's children, I know a lot of people who are, and 2 words I would like to ask everyone to add to their vocabulary tonight is fentanyl orphans and fentanyl grandfamilies. And these fentanyl orphans are at risk for substance use disorder themselves. They are, 20 years ago, my sister worked for Western Missouri Mental Health at a group home in Independence, Missouri, group home for adolescent boys, and she told me that a lot of the residents there didn't even have a diagnosis. They were foster kids that nobody wanted. So they were just put in a group home, and these fentanyl orphans, some of them don't have families that can step in and take care of them and step up. And we're setting up a whole nother generation for being at risk for this. But I believe my son would have recovered from a substance use disorder. He was trying. He was hitting his bottom. I don't know if he was completely there yet. We had tried twice to help him get clean, and we were getting there. But before fentanyl, people had years and years and years and years to recover, and fentanyl robbed him of that. He didn't get that chance. And one other thing I would like to say, he was 29, and at this far end of the innocent scale, I have a friend here whose son was 15 and in the experimental phase. That journey now from early experimenting with drugs to being 29 and hitting your bottom and seeking treatment and recovery, that is now like trying to walk across a landmine field. Many people will not survive it. And that's why just treatment and recovery alone isn't going to save those 15-year-old kids that are experimenting. We have to approach this from every angle with every solution and working together and across the aisle. I think that's wonderful. One of our biggest supporters says this is not a red or blue issue, it's a red, white, blue issue.
Yes. Laura, thank you so much. Laura was with us in Columbia. Well, look, you've heard the stories. This is a crisis. If you get a chance as you leave tonight, I think some of the booths are still set up out in the lobby. Get to know some of these other families who are not on our panel, but they have their stories to tell about their loved ones. There's a poster out there with a thumbnail picture I don't know how many young people are on that, but it seems like 1,000. Each name here tonight, it's not just a name. It's an individual with a family, fentanyl orphan family. And I feel like as we do these, we're becoming family as well, even for those who have not lost a loved one. Congressman Cleaver, I'm just curious, when we grew up, Nancy Reagan with the war on drugs and the Beach Boys coming out and just say no. Things have certainly changed since the 1980s, haven't
They certainly have. Times have changed, and not all good changes. But these families, and friends, and parents, and grandparents, and loved ones have and continue to go through. It's just absolutely heartbreaking to hear these stories. And I don't know where anybody is in terms of their own religion, but I would ask you tonight to pray for the God that's known by many names, whoever you refer to as God. Pray for these families. I think if anybody out there can I think, put yourself in that place and think, they are actually some very courageous people to come out and do this with us tonight. God bless you.
Yes, indeed. Well, listen, folks, we're going to break down this next segment of discussion into 6 parts, okay? A, how does law enforcement handle the fentanyl opioid crisis? B, what is the Missouri law and legislation in charging drug dealers? What are some of the changes we need to make? Sherry, I know you've got some ideas and some bills on that. C, how to respond. Is it okay to call 911? We're going to talk about the shame and guilt associated with this crisis. D, how and where do we get help? The hope. How and where do we get help? E, what is harm reduction? Now, this is a new term I just learned this week. Harm reduction. How to use Narcan. We're going to be actually demonstrating that for you tonight, and where you can get it, where you should have it, and how to properly administer Narcan. And then last, section F, talk to your children so these parents' stories don't become your stories. Some lessons to take home tonight.
All right, let's begin with the law enforcement community and the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department. Chief.
Yes, and first I just want to acknowledge Laura and Sarah. I'm sorry for your loss. And I think that even talking or listening to both of your stories, your child that was 18 and yours that was 29, like I said earlier, it affects all ages, all people, substance abuse issue or not. For some, these are people who may be using something else that they're not addicted to, or some kind of other substance, or even in a pill that they think that may have potentially someone is sharing a prescription drug with them when actually it's laced with fentanyl. So I think that is part of what the crisis is that there's a lot of other substances that are being laced with fentanyl, and it's turning deadly. People don't know what they're taking. So part of addressing this crisis from law enforcement is that education piece, is letting people know that this drug is out there, that it is being placed in and mass and other types of narcotics, even those that someone might think that they're actually legal prescription narcotics. But I appreciate what you said about it being a multifaceted approach, because that's exactly what it needs to be, which is reflected in this panel here. You have law enforcement, you have educators, you have emergency services. That is the approach that we need to take as law enforcement, is to be part of that. And of course, law enforcement is in prevention, intervention, and enforcement, and that applies to the fentanyl crisis as well. I would like to turn this over to some of those that are working directly in some of those investigations.
Thanks, Chief. We have different programs. We base ours off of the prevention, intervention, and then we do have prosecution. That's an important part of this that we have to discuss as well. But prevention, we We start with kids in schools, we have college, we have Sergeant McConiff is with a lot of folks in the CIT program. We have many different things to try to have prevention right off the bat. And as you said, the difficult part of this with fentanyl is you can go and think you're going to a rehabilitation center. Well, it can be a high school student that has never tried a drug, and it can kill them on the first time. So whenever I don't know who said on the panel, if you could spread the message to 5 people or 10 people. That's what we have to get the word out. This is not something that you take over the course of time. You take it one time, and it can be the only time. So prevention is a huge part of what we do. The second thing is, as the chief said, was intervention. And I'll let Major talk about what we do during an investigation, how we try to intervene at that time when we find someone that has fentanyl.
Again, thank you for being here. And I kind of want to give a quick shout out to Rep. Gallick. I was one of the ones that had the honor of responding to the bill that you're proposing. And that is a big part from the law enforcement community, is not just having a bunch of laws, but are the laws going to be effective? And that was kind of nice to be able to discuss that with my staff and have a response to that. We take it from a lot of different things. From the education standpoint, you've got detectives going out to schools, forums, public gatherings, community events, and things like that. Even when we bring in somebody on an arrest for a simple possession, a lot of our focus is on source of supply. So when we're interviewing people, not only are we trying to find out where did it come from, where did that person get it, and get up on down the chain, but we do actually offer for the end user services. However, on that same note, we do file those cases, and that gives the prosecutor's office chances for intervention as well, such as drug courts and such for that. We work with a lot of different partners. We're currently doing a lot of collaboration with the City Health Department right now. We do a lot of mapping, looking for hotspots and trends, and a lot of education amongst ourselves. I mean, as many people have noted on this panel, while it's really kind of hit the last couple of years, a lot of these trends are kind of new, and a lot of it starts on the coast, works its way here. Kansas City tends to be about 2 to 3 years behind. So we do a lot of education internally. What trends are we seeing on how it's shipped, how it's brought here? How can we interdict and intervene in that? What is coming here? Right now, we're paying a lot of attention to a narcotic called xylazine. And one of the fears with xylazine is, you hear a lot about Narcan and the ability to reverse an overdose. Xylazine actually inhibits the ability of Narcan to be effective. Cases where it took 1 or 2 hits of Narcan to bring somebody out of an overdose now take 5 or 6, if successful at all. And that's a fairly unregulated narcotic. So just working with various criminal justice entities to deal with that kind of thing. But a lot of it is just finding the best ways for us to educate and intervene ourselves into that supply chain and bringing it in.
I could talk about some of this, a challenge that we have for law enforcement is, when you do have a family member and, the family member wants justice for the death of their loved one. And that is such a difficult, it's a challenge for those prosecutions. And part of that is either tracking that person down, because obviously your loved one would be the best person to lead us to who is bringing that dangerous substance into our community, but also trying to make a case on that. So I've talked to other law enforcement officials, going across the United States. When we meet for major city chiefs, we all get together as peers and we discuss the challenges and some of the trends and the dangers that we're facing in law enforcement. And fentanyl is one of those that we all have the unfortunate commonality. And part of those conversations is about the prosecution. I think that's something that we have here at KCPD, and that's why I'm so happy to hear that legislation here is in the works. But another part of the education piece of this is the danger of it. It's such a small amount. If people are involved in the use of illegal narcotics, it's not a scientist that's putting this together. You have people that are cutting cocaine, putting it in oxycodone pills or Xanax, or masking it as such, pressing their own pills. That's where a lot of the danger comes that I mentioned earlier, where people that are thinking they may be purchasing a prescription drug on the street when actually they're getting something that's laced with fentanyl. And that's what makes it so dangerous, is because it's mass and it just takes a small amount to cause death. But I will say, the numbers that you mentioned earlier with what we are recovering, interdicting, and charging people with is astronomical when you look at the quantity, the weight of the narcotics, and how many of let's say, small pinch of that could kill someone. That's what makes it so dangerous. But I will tell you that it is going to take that multifaceted approach that we have with everyone here and our federal partners to really try to get a grip on this and try to track that down to how it's coming into our communities, how it's coming into our country. So there's a lot of work to be done. And like Major Buck said, we have another, even potentially more dangerous drug on the horizon that we need to start educating people about already, which we had a Board of Police Commissioner meeting probably about 3 or 4 months ago, where we introduced xylazine and started that conversation. So that's yet another thing that we need to have in some of these conversations with fentanyl. Like, here's fentanyl, but here's what may be coming behind that may be potentially more dangerous.
Let me just say something in harmony with what the chief, the deputy chief, and the major said earlier. Michael Jackson, in 2009, at the age of 50, died of fentanyl laced with heroin, and a doctor was in the room. He had no chance. He could not save him. And then in 2016, Prince died the same way, fentanyl. It is getting to a point where they cannot reverse it, as you said earlier.
Thank you so much, Kansas City, Missouri Police Department. Let's get over to Jackson County and the Lieutenant for the state of Missouri trooper. Captain Dan, I heard a lot of stress and emotion in your opening statements, and I can tell this is bearing down on a lot of people in this room who feel almost hopeless. Can you walk our audience through how is fentanyl getting into the United States? Who is behind this? How is it coming up into the heart of America, stopping the hearts of young Americans?
Well, in a nutshell, it's Mexican drug cartels.
Yeah.
The drug cartels control the drug trade in Kansas City and across the United States. In the 1990s, Purdue Pharma developed OxyContin. OxyContin was developed as an end-of-life pain management. They marketed it as addicting in less than 1% of its patients. By 2001, it was the best-selling pain reliever in the United States. So the genie was out of the bottle. By 2010, 2015, the doctors and everybody here realized they had been sold really a bill of goods and lied to. So the prescriptions cut back, which it's all a supply and demand. So we took the supply away. The demand was there because of all the people that we had literally addicted to fentanyl and OxyContin through legal prescriptions. The drug cartel stepped up. They pressed their pills. They pressed the M30 pills. The issue with those are fentanyl is measured in micrograms. 2 micrograms is basically a dose. 99% of the pills, the counterfeit pills, are binding material to hold that pill together. So these guys don't have very good quality control. They basically put the binding material and the fentanyl in a mixture in a blender and blend it up. Well, some pills will have 1 microgram, some pills will have 5, some pills will have 10.
I've heard someone explain it's like mixing a batch of Toll House cookies.
Yep.
You might have a cookie with a lot of chocolate chips in one, and one cookie that has hardly any in it. It's the one that has a lot of chocolate chips that ends up killing you.
Well, I used to drink protein shakes where you put the powder in the blender, and you always got that little ball that didn't get mixed up. That's what'll kill you. And that's the way they're mixing up these pills. So,
how's it getting up here to Kansas City and Jackson County?
Well, several different ways, but basically it's distributors are in Jackson County, in Kansas City, probably within walking distance of this school that control the drug trade in Jackson County, and those drugs are then basically, I mean, we've done it, we called Mexico. I never thought a local cop could call Mexico, order drugs, have them delivered to Kansas City, have them delivered to 39th and Millen Road, but we do, and we do it all the time. So our job is to follow the source of the drug. And what I tell my guys, if we can't follow, and basically the majority of what we do now is fentanyl because of its impact on the community. If we can't follow that trail back and follow that source of supply back to Mexico, then we fail and we're not doing our job correctly. So that's our job, and that's what we try to do. And we do the best we can do. We work with the Department of Homeland Security on a daily basis. Because some of those drugs, their first stop from Mexico is Kansas City, is Jackson County, is Independence, is Blue Springs. So that's who we try to target, that's who we go after, and that's what we're trying to do, to basically stem the flow into Jackson County.
Lieutenant, let's dig into that just a little bit, because we are proud of our roads here in Missouri, but there are also roads for human sex trafficking and unfortunately these opioids and fentanyl. How do you stop that on our roads?
It's difficult. You're relying upon trained observers and attentive police officers to recognize when they've got somebody who is trafficking fentanyl or other drugs and attempting to find a legal, moral, and ethical way to get into that vehicle and search that car. Luckily, we have several troopers on the Missouri State Highway Patrol that are very successful and skilled at that, at doing that. But we just need more. And it becomes overwhelming. And when you were talking about the weight of everybody's got this on us right now, I see it in the people I work with every day, and I see it in the community I live in, which is this community that I love so much. I told this story at the zoo with you, and I was told this by my mom many, many years ago that I think applies here. You know, we're getting overwhelmed, and it looks helpless. We're hopeless. But when we give up like that, it's a failure. And so I tell the story of this guy walking down the beach, and maybe you've heard this before. And the tide's rolled out, and he's walking down the beach, and he's picking up starfish, and he's throwing them back in the ocean because they've been strained by the tide. And then you got the other person walking from the other direction who ridicules that person and says, there's hundreds of miles of beaches, there's hundreds of starfish out here. You're never going to make a difference. He picks up that starfish and he throws the next one in the ocean. He says, it made a difference to that one. And so I think that's the challenge for everybody in this room, is to find your starfish and focus on that, and focus on whatever role it is that you can play in this epidemic that we're fighting right now, and be relentless on that. You know, our lives are at risk, the health of our community, everything is at risk because of this. So just focus on your starfish. And that's what I tell my people every day when we go out there to work. Focus on your starfish. So whether that's somebody we stop that's a user of fentanyl, and we're completely understanding of how addiction works, and we attempt to extract from them the source of supply. But when it comes to the distributors, I tell my folks, the gloves come off at that point. They're the bullies of our society. And what do you guys do to bullies? You make them pay. And thank you, Sherry, for writing a bill that's going to help us make them pay. We need that.
Thank you, that's what we're doing. Yeah, I want to follow up on those questions. I no longer say the word dealer, drug dealer, it's an attempted murderer. But once law enforcement has successfully taken down a bad person, what then? What about our laws in the state of Missouri? Do they need to be strengthened? Are they tough enough? What happens if the counties don't work together, prosecutors don't work together, people interpret the laws differently? What happens when that suit comes into play?
Let's go to Clifton Davis. Maybe you can answer that, attorney.
Sure. So, Congressman, one of the things that, as far as our Attorney General's office, we agree that these cases are very difficult to charge. We have 100% of the criminal appeals in the state when they make it that far. But when it comes to the charging authority, the original charging authority, that lies with the local prosecutors. And one of the things that we've been striving to do is instill a combined minds approach. And a lot of that has to do with the sharing of data. So one of the things that we are trying to tackle at the Attorney General's office is how to bring in all of these organizations, both federal and state, to provide assistance in these investigations to local law enforcement and local prosecutors. So making ourselves more available in an education campaign to local prosecutors, knowing that they can ask us for assistance. And then also engaging with other institutions that we have historically not engaged with, like the financial institutions. So being able to track the money and the suspicious activity, just like Captain Cummings was saying, if we don't track it all the way back, it doesn't really matter. So we are striving right now to make prosecution a little less intimidating for the locals, and then also being able to be a central repository to share that data with prosecutors.
Senator?
One thing that I do want to share is, and Clifton, you can probably add to this, when some cases, I know that they have caught some distributors, but then it knocks it to the next level and it goes to a federal. So there's kind of there's a weird little segment that you can prosecute, because if it's bigger, then it goes to the federal. And then we lose, it's not that you lose control, you still have an invested interest, but it's out of your hands at that point. And I think, isn't that what happened, Sarah, to the distributors? So that's something we have to deal with. The one thing that I will say on these forums, and again, I did the original one with Mark and Sarah, but I also did one in Bates County, because I had, my district is Cass and Bates County. And while not many people showed up, the best thing that happened was that there were all kinds of segments of law enforcement, hospitals, mental health facilities, and they all talked. And they said, you know what, this is great, because we don't usually talk to each other. And they learned some things from each other that is going to help them in the future. One thing that I do want to add, because you talked about a bill. I haven't filed one that I think is good enough yet, so I'm working on it, but there are a few. My fear is that I don't want to put a Band-Aid on this. I want to do something that actually makes a difference and doesn't have unintended consequences, so I'm working on it. But the biggest thing I look at is, and I'm old, many of you are a lot younger than me, but I remember smoking. Back in the day, smoking was a big issue. You didn't smoke. Well, cigarettes are still an issue, but the population does not smoke like it did everywhere. You could smoke in buildings, you could smoke everywhere. The only way that I see that we attack this is to educate our youth, to make sure that they know one pill, if it is not your pill from a prescription, it can kill you. And then when they get a little older, I think a lot of this is mental health deal. We need to look into our mental health, because some people might be doing this, but what's the underlying issue? And I know that there are some bills that we're working on in the state to get more money and provide more services to mental health. But it all is connected. I do have a bill also on online pornography to protect minors from online pornography. While that doesn't seem like it's connected, that is connected to sex trafficking, and that's connected to fentanyl. So it's not just one thing. I wish it was. I wish I could say, oh, this is what's going to solve this. But it's so complicated. You have to take it apart piece by piece and make sure that you're doing it right. So that's kind of my answer.
Representative Gallant, you have anything you'd like to add to that?
No, not really. Do you have anything you want to add?
Anything else?
Yeah, I would add one thing, and your representative here making some good points about how things are connected. And one of the things that Laura mentioned was foster care. And a lot of people would not make that connection as far as how vulnerable these missing and exploited children can be, because they leave parental care, they don't have parental care, they don't have an identity, they easily become susceptible to drug addiction and fentanyl, and then that leads to sex trafficking, leads to everything else. So we've tried to do more work with the National Center of Missing and Exploited Children, and just bringing all of this data together and this information to make it more easily available for our prosecutors and law enforcement.
Were you going to say something?
I wanted to say something about the drug-induced homicide, and all over the state of Missouri, there are drug dealers that have been prosecuted with second-degree murder and held accountable for the deaths that they caused. But it varies from county to county, and it's frustrating because some states' attorneys won't prosecute those cases, and in many cases, the victims are considered culpable in their own deaths. So they're not seen as victims. It's frustrating as a parent because my son didn't want to die. He didn't ask for fentanyl. He didn't want fentanyl. He didn't know he was getting fentanyl. He was poisoned just like the people who got cyanide in their Tylenol back in the 1980s. My son was poisoned the same way. But there was no investigation. There were no charges filed. And we all stood up here and said, with liberty and justice for all.
Exactly.
My son shouldn't be denied justice just because he had a substance use disorder.
And Laura, weren't you telling me earlier that the coroner wouldn't even do a blood test?
No, she didn't.
Yeah.
And when I asked her what substance killed my son, she asked me what difference it made.
I can't tell you this. There is a bill that was filed yesterday to make stronger regulations on coroners, because I was not aware of a lot of this stuff until I talked to Laura. But people talk about politicians, whether it be federal or state, and what do they really do? There are a lot of people that honestly work very hard, contrary to some of the things that you see on the news. Most of the people there are really racking their brains and trying to do the right thing. I know I have worked with Clifton before. I've reached out to several segments of the government. We want to do the right thing, but we don't want to do the wrong thing and put a Band-Aid on something just to make it happen. And I feel really bad because I promised some people back in August that I was going to file a bill that had murder charges, but it wasn't the right bill. And I want to do it the right way. And I did call the people that I told that to, because I said, I'm apologizing, because by now I had hoped that I was going to do this and find a solution. But again, I don't want to find the wrong solution. So.
Well, thank you for the work you're doing. The statistics show, and I found this out with our first fentanyl forum in Cass County. Did you know that 63% of the people who die from fentanyl overdoses or poisoning, there's someone present with them at the time of death?
Yep.
Now that's staggering to think that person there could make a difference. Part of that difference is getting emergency help there, calling 911, a life-saving call. if there's any doubt, fire and rescue is not your enemy, they're your friend. We have something called the Good Samaritan Law. You're not going to get in trouble if you are there with someone and you're also involved in what's going on that evening or morning, and someone is dying in front of you and you don't have Narcan. You need to make that call. Let's talk with the Kansas City Fire Department Rescue Division Chief Hopper from the EMS. Do you find that's the case, that people are afraid that they're going to get busted somehow because maybe they're caught up with what's going on and don't want to be behind bars?
Yes, it's a significant problem, and I know that the Kansas City Police Department does, I've personally seen, just an absolutely commendable job in trying to be compassionate in those situations, but we can't change that mindset. And unfortunately, I have personally been to the call where rather than help the person that's overdosed, the friend that was using with them threw them in front of a door, pounded on a door, ran away. Because they were terrified of the consequences of it. And we're talking minutes, 8 minutes, 6 minutes. The brain damage is irreversible. And people think about death often, but what they don't think about is there's a lot of people that survive, and they survive with profound neurological deficits, and the consequences to their families, to society, is immense. The burden is immense on those that have to care for them, the healthcare system that is already overburdened. So, yes, we do see the fact that people are absolutely terrified of prosecution. And back to the point about unintended consequences, there is an absolute razor's edge between enforcement, interdiction, but also it has to be balanced with prevention. And that's a very difficult line to walk, and I certainly don't envy having to make those legislative decisions and how delicate that balance is.
Nurse Glover, I want to ask you a question. I remember back in the day, I had a good relationship with a nurse. Everyone liked the school nurse, almost a counselor. They probably tell you a lot of things they're not going to tell their parents. There's a trust factor there. What are you hearing from the students here about fentanyl and people who have died that have attended this school and some of the things that you guys are working on?
Well, first, fortunately, we haven't had a fentanyl death.
Good.
Not saying it can't happen, but we haven't. Unfortunately, when I talk to the students about vaping or marijuana, they never talk about fentanyl because they don't think it'll happen to them. And so I have a lot of discussions with them. We went to clear backpacks. We started last year. And some of the things we find, it scares me to think what was there when we didn't have the clear backpacks. And so, but I explained to them the reasons of why we're doing that, for their safety, but also that security call me if they find bottles of pills. We've had kids bring pills in a bag. That's not, but could be Tylenol, whatever, but those things show up. They do like to share because they trust their friend. Well, this is my friend or this is my cousin. They're not blood cousins, everybody's a cousin, right? Somebody that they grew up with. But that's my cousin, they wouldn't give that to me. And I have to explain to them, but maybe they don't know either because they don't know where it got it from. So since we had that incident, we're very proactive. So after every hall pass, we're checking every restroom. During the class time, if I'm going up for the floor for something else, I just kind of peek in the bathrooms. I go into the bathrooms, and one thing I've learned is you can't stand at the bathroom door and look at the stalls. You got to go to every single stall because they perch themselves on top of the toilet so that you can't see them and the doors are open, so you would think nobody was in there. So we have to, we have to be really proactive. We keep talking to them. As the nurse, I have hot tea and candy and stuff in my office to sweeten them up so when I chew them out, but it's also so that they will open up and tell me some things. I find out things that are happening at home. When we call parents, the unfortunate part is that most of the time parents know, that they're either vaping or if they're smoking marijuana. It's done at home. And so our goal, like I said before, is when we talk to students, we try to put away the nurse hat or the administrator hat and put on our parent hat and talk to them and explain to them that we care and we don't want, and I tell them, you know, I had to give Narcan to a student. And luckily, just a few months before that, I just got the Narcan in the building. And had I not had it in the building, we'd be bearing this.
Yeah.
You know?
We're going to be talking about Narcan a little bit later, and hopefully educating folks here about the use of it and how to administer it. Sergeant McCunniff, as a CIT supervisor, what are you seeing out there? Are people afraid to call 911? How are you encouraging people to have a conversation without fear of incarceration?
Well, for the CIT unit, we're very well known with a lot of individuals that are houseless that also use substances. We go into the camps in our city, we talk to folks, and even individuals that officers have been to their houses on calls where they may have used substances and needed to call 911. One of the first things we say is, hey, we don't want to, you're not going to get in trouble, we're here to help you, we're trying to get you help. Because we, just like Nurse Glover said, you know, they won't open up to us if they think that fear is, well, if I tell you that I took something or I told you what happened, then you're gonna take me to jail. So we are very clear about, hey, we're with the CIT unit, we have extra training, we care, this is what we do, we bring mental health professionals just to show a different look to the police department. We even wear different uniforms in our unit for that reason, so we're not showing up looking like enforcement. So we have a good response from people. If we can't fix the problem, you know, I recently started reaching out to different groups in the community of when I was seeing report after report of substance use, and I'm like, well, what can we do as a police department? What can we do about this? Yes, we have the enforcement side, but what else are we doing? And so that's when I started reaching out to other groups that have people with lived experience that could outreach these individuals that the police department's having contact with, so that they could maybe be that, you know, intervention for them. So we have some luck. I mean, sometimes it takes repeat visits with people for them to open up to us, but we keep trying.
Thank you.
My wife bought a Cocker Spaniel. Was the worst little dog in the most worthless dog probably in the county, maybe in the city. His name is Homeboy. But when I get up every morning, I would open the back door and throw out a hot dog, and he'd run out. But when I would go to the refrigerator, he would sit down right in front of the refrigerator every morning and wag his little abbreviated tail. And one Sunday I was standing up around my house, I thought, boy, if that's not hope, I don't know what it is. And so that's kind of where we are right now. You know, there is hope and healing. I think there's somebody here from Truman, Gerard Rinaldi, but we put $3 million in there to open up a clinic to help the people we're talking about. It'll open up in August, so that's just another resource. But I'm also interested in, you know, whether or not there is living proof of what hope is all about, and with help, how life can be turned around. Meet Max Mueller, counselor with the Full Circle Treatment Center, and recovered addict. Ms. Miller.
Thank you. There's, you know, I have a few minutes, so there's so much to get into with all of this. I think the primary message I want everyone to take away from this is, you know, if there's any, like, just ask for help. There are so many resources in the Kansas City community. I went to this community event today, and it was a coalition of people coming in from St. Louis, and they were talking about how overwhelming it was, the response of their program coming to Kansas City. There were tons of people there. So the resources are out there. There's free resources. So if you see a problem, you know, the way that this is going nowadays is the stigma is starting to fade. It's still there, of course, there's embarrassment. You don't want it to be you or your family. You know, my father sat up here on one of these forums several months ago, right? And now that I'm on the other side of this, right, he can stand up here and hold his head up high and talk about how his biggest fear was getting a phone call in the middle of the night, right? And knowing that phone call is going to be that I'm in the hospital, right? Which happened multiple times, right? And I'm, you know, by the grace of God, still here and I made it through. But there are resources and whatever. There's a lot that goes into it. There's a couple of things that I just wanted to touch on really fast with this, right? I think one thing that we haven't talked about up here yet is the physical dependence of opioids. And for me, when I finally got sober at the age of 29, right, I had been physically dependent for 8 years, right? And so it was this constant struggle of going through withdrawal, of not really thinking that there was a solution, right? I had just resigned to the fact that I was going to end up in a grave or institution one day. That was just where I had gotten in my life. That's just what I believed, and it was just, I'm just going to do this until I can't do this anymore, right? I didn't know that there were people out there that actually had recovered. It wasn't even a thought in my mind, right? Like Alcoholics Anonymous was this distant thing that I knew about but didn't really know about, right? So, you know, the hardest part for me was making that phone call and knowing that I needed to go through, you know, several days of the pain of going through the withdrawal process, right? Which I went through more times than I care to admit. But so that's just one thing I want to talk about, right? There are resources for that. There are places people can go, right? It's calling and picking up that 1,000-pound phone and being willing to ask for help. It does exist. It is out there. And there are, you know, I know hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of recovered people all over Kansas City, all over the state that have made it to the other side of this. So I just wanted to say that there is a solution out there with that. So I am really grateful to be here. Overall, that is just the ultimate message, right? Full Circle is one of, you know, we're a free program to 25 and under in the Kansas City community. So, you know, any young people that are struggling with substance abuse, we're an awesome resource, right? We're also a referral service. We understand that we can't meet everybody's needs. So, you know, we will help you find the correct program for you and your kids. So, but we are just one of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of services all over the city, support groups, you know, just all after-school events. Like, there's all kinds of stuff out there that will help fight this problem. So that's just what I'm saying.
Well, I'll say again, just because I want to make sure that people know that this is coming. We were able to get a $3 million earmark for Truman Medical Center, and it's for the Substance Abuse Center, and it will be able to treat about 1,000 patients a year. And so, beginning in August of this year. But what I want to throw around is just possible. The greatest scandal in my senior year in high school was when Charles Taylor was caught in the bathroom drinking wine. His father was a minister also. And it was a scandal. I mean, and nobody wanted to be caught. What can we do to return that? I mean, I'm not trying to live in the past, but some of the things we had in the past were actually good. And if that was a scandal, then if we can somehow recreate that atmosphere over drugs and other things, isn't that going to be helpful? Anybody?
Margot Mueller with First Call. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Fix it.
I don't know if I have any thoughts on that scandal, but I wish that was still a scandal, because unfortunately now we're not finding students drinking wine in bathroom stalls. We're finding them in bathroom stalls accidentally overdosing on pills. So with that, what I would say, I mean, I know we're going to get into harm reduction, but there are things that, like I said when I introduced myself, we do a lot of prevention programming throughout the Kansas City Metro. So I've heard lots of people say prevention is key, and I'm like, yes, keep saying that because that's my job. But getting into schools and talking to young people, no matter what age they are, about just like healthy decisions and how to make the best choice for you, knowing that my best choice might be different than Max's best choice. Our circumstances might be different, and instilling in them that they still have the power to make the best choice for them. I would say for adults, know the signs of young people using drugs or experimenting. Pay attention to if they're sleeping more than usual, if they have a decline in their personal hygiene, if valuables are going missing around the house. That's something to pay attention to. Another piece that I would say is talk to them. Talk to our young people. They hear you. They're listening. They might not act like they're listening, but they do hear us. Talk to them. Have conversations. I know many families, like growing up, we had dinner as a family around the dinner table every single night. That doesn't happen anymore. There's too many activities. There's too much stuff for kids to do. Bring conversations back to the dinner table. Have a conversation with your children, with your children's friends. And then finally, what I would say is, like, before we expect any change, I think many people up here have covered that, like, this is not just a fentanyl issue. This is a mental health issue as well. And I'll speak like one of the schools that we provide programs at, or actually all schools in the Center School District we provide programming at. So we get to learn information, and across the metro area, students that have used prescription drugs in the past 30 days, when they're asked why, their answer is to cope with stress. So if we expect them to stop experimenting with drugs, then we need to get to the root cause of their drug use. We can't expect change if we're not addressing whatever underlying issue is causing them to use drugs.
Yeah.
We have to be patient, we have to give each other grace, and then we have to work together. Everyone up here has to work together. And then the last thing I'm going to say is thank you, Major Buck, for bringing up xylazine, because it is coming. And I'm happy to say that First Call does have xylazine test strips. We just purchased those, so now we have fentanyl test strips that also test for xylazine. Our resource table is out there. Scan our QR code and we can get you some.
Let's still dig into that just a little bit, because we're now to our next segment. The theme of this forum, of course, is to inform, support, and prevent. I think I've told you this already. If not, we do have Narcan in our offices. I carry it in my car all around the 4th Congressional District. And I like to tell people, look, just because you have a fire extinguisher in your office doesn't mean you're an arsonist. It means you're prepared.
Exactly.
We know how to do CPR. We know how to do the Heimlich maneuver. Hopefully I will never have to use those, but it's good to be prepared. And so let's learn a little bit more about the harm reduction, what it means and what Narcan and the test strips can do. Test strips, there's a little more controversy surrounding that than Narcan, but Jackson County Health Director Bridget Schaffer, explain what Narcan is, what it does, and the test strips as well, please.
Yeah, thank you. So first I'll just start with harm reduction, because I know that is maybe a newer term for some of you. And what we mean by harm reduction, we're talking about ways that we can reduce those negative consequences of drug use. And by using this term, we're really trying to acknowledge that some people may still continue to use drugs, right? And we want to respect the people that do use drugs while minimizing those harmful impacts of drug use and creating a safer environment for those that do use. So first again, Narcan, that is something that everyone should carry. And as Congressman Alford said, think of it like a fire extinguisher. Every home should have one. Every person should know how to use one. And really, it's a crucial life-saving tool that in particular, it's critical when there's a situation where time is of the essence. So you want to have Narcan available to you. And we did get feedback. We do provide these free. There's a resource table outside, so please grab one on your way out. But we did have someone use Narcan or get Narcan from our clinic at the health department, and then had to use it at a concert, and then came back and got additional. So we know it's a life-saving tool. Please grab some and carry that with you. Next, I just want to talk about test strips. So fentanyl test strips, you can test your supply of drugs, and fentanyl test strips are just a low-cost method to test for the presence of fentanyl in your drugs, whether it be cocaine or methamphetamines or heroin. It's can be pills, powder, injectables, so it can test for fentanyl. But as we talked about earlier, there is the chocolate chip cookie effect. And so a piece of a pill may or may not contain fentanyl, and you want to make sure you test the entire pill. If you test a pill and it is positive, you would want to destroy the entire batch of pills. If you test a pill and it's negative, you want to make sure you test the other ones in that batch as well. You don't want to think that just because you had that one pill that that tested negative, that the other ones are safe as well.
Real quick, what do you say to folks, because I've heard this, you're just enabling drug use by suggesting that we're testing pills and that sort of thing. What's your answer to that?
Yeah, so we're, like I said, trying to create a safer environment for drug use. So for those that are going to use, we want to make sure that they're doing it safely and that we can have tools at our fingertips that can keep them from having a fentanyl overdose.
Does that mean you're condoning the drug use?
No, that does not mean we're condoning the drug use. It's just a proven tool that allows us to make sure that we are being mindful and keeping that safe environment for others. Next, I just want to talk very briefly about syringe service programs. This is community-based prevention programs. These are actually not legal in Missouri at this time, but there are 3 bills, I believe, in Missouri regarding syringe service programs. And these are about linking people to substance abuse disorder treatments, access to clean needles, and disposal of used needles, and prevention of infectious diseases as well. So this is, again, a great tool that can be at our disposal if and when they become legal in Missouri, and they do not promote or encourage drug use. Lastly, I just want to touch on the never use alone. So we definitely do not want people to use alone, and we want to offer that there's a 24/7 non-judgmental support line from that is manned by volunteers with lived experience of substance abuse, and you can call that number anytime, and that's 1-800-484-3731. So, thank you.
In the lobby, there is Narcan and test strips. And on behalf of Congressman Alford and myself, members of Congress, I want to say they are free. And spread that. Please take them home with you. In the lobby on your way out after we finish. I'd like to also mention that there's information from Jackson County Health Department, First Call and First Circle Preventive Services, and the Opioid Response Network, along with fentanyl groups who have lost their loved ones. Please stop by in the hallway and visit these resource tables when the program ends. They are here with information and resources to help you save lives and educate yourself on this important subject.
Well, a couple of weeks ago, by the way, we have a great team that puts these together. I'm up in Washington. We're trying to do our work up there, and when I'm home, Reverend Cleaver, I'm traveling the district. He has a more compact district. I have 24 counties in my district. I put 70,000 miles last year on my Ford Expedition, listening to folks in my district. Yeah, that's a lot of miles. But my point is, while I'm doing that, our team is working on this forum, and they heard something that they really thought was invaluable, and we wanted to bring it to the forum tonight, and that is actually how to use Narcan, because while I carry it, I've never seen it used. I think there's a lot of misconceptions about what it could do, even if you're not. If you come upon someone who you think is having an opioid crisis or being poisoned by fentanyl, if you administer them Narcan, will it hurt them? Sarah, would you like to answer that?
Absolutely. The incredible thing about Narcan is that it is an opioid agonist. So it is effective for opioids and opioids only. So if you have somebody who is experiencing an alcohol overdose or an overdose of benzos, Narcan is not going to help in those situations. However, it is very, very safe, and it is not going to harm anyone during that. So if you are unaware of what substances this person may have ingested, Narcan can help, and it cannot hurt.
Well, let's prove that right now. I want to move to center stage with you. We're going to show how to use Narcan, take it out of the box, and walk through it.
I have a bit of a flair for the dramatic. I have a microphone, but let's see. If I can I use yours? Yeah. Because I just wanted to, no, I just wanted to be able to show it. So, sorry, even if my microphone doesn't work, I used to be a preschool teacher at one point, so I can project. So for those of you who are not aware, hold on, let me cut out my neck first. Excuse me. No exercise. You're fine. So, Narcan comes in a box like this. There are actually 2 doses in each of these boxes. So, each dose is going to be in this little blister pack. 2 doses in here. Like I said, Narcan is effective for opioids, but not for other drugs. However, if you administer it and other drugs are in the system, it is not going to harm the individual. First thing you need to figure out is whether or not this person needs Narcan. Congressman, if you want to lay down for me there. So this is my buddy Mark. We've been at a party. I don't know what's happened to him. But the first thing I'm going to do, because I know CPR and I have my CPR training, right? I'm going to call care. I'm going to check for signs and symptoms. I'm going to call 911. I'm going to provide care. So, what are those signs and symptoms that we are going to be looking for? When it comes to opioids, they are central nervous system depressants, so everything slows down, right? So we're looking for pale, clammy skin. We're looking for blue lips. Whoops, I probably just had blue on my face because of that, because of the projector. So we're looking for blue around the lips or around the skin, especially at the nail beds. We are looking for shallow breathing or breathing that is stopped, a slow heart rate, pinpoint pupils. So I'm going to come up to my buddy Mark here who's on the ground. I'm going to say, hey Mark, you okay? Hey buddy, everything going okay? Hold on. Hey Margot, Mark's in bad shape. Can you call 911? Yes. Excellent. Then I'm going to pull out my Narcan. I have little tester dummies here, so after the forum, if anyone would like to test out, see, feel, manipulate one of these are just dummies. There's no medication in here. But I'm going to take my Narcan. I'm going to peel the case. I'm going to take out my Narcan. I'm going to, do you mind if I actually stick it in your nostril? Excellent. I'm going to take my Narcan. You'll notice it's got a little plunger here in the bottom. I am not going to prime it like Flonase. I know some of you have already started dealing with spring allergies. Don't have to prime it, right? I'm just going to stick it right into his nostril until my fingers touch the end of his nose, and I'm going to fully press in that plunger. That's it. That's all you have to do. I'm going to continue to monitor him, and after 2 or 3 minutes, if he is still not responsive, I'm going to take out that second dose, take it out just like I did the first one, and this time I'm going to try to do it in the other nostril. Stick it in, press in the plunger, and wait for 911 to get there. All right. Other thing that I would suggest is if you are going to have Narcan if you have someone in your home that you're worried about, that you fear that you may get that call or that you may find, not only having Narcan on you, but also making sure that you are trained in CPR. The other thing that you can do if your friend, if your loved one is, and you can get up, Congressman. Another thing that you can do in addition to provide, if you have somebody who is unresponsive and not breathing, is providing CPR and rescue routes. Also very valuable tools. Shameless plug, the Cass County Health Department offers CPR certification. My staff is the best, just so you know.
Aspirating vomitus.
There can be. So with any overdose event, whether if you were assisting someone, putting them in the recovery position, rolling them on their side so that if there is anything that comes up, but there's no aspiration.
They don't choke on that.
Yes, that's correct.
Well, thank you. Great job.
Thank you.
In my real life, I'm a United Methodist ordained minister, and we are so pleased to have Reverend John Miles here from the Morning Star Missionary Baptist Church in Kansas City, who's transformed the whole neighborhood, by the way. You traffic in hope. What does the faith community have to offer in this kind of discussion? What does faith tell us as we struggle with issues like fentanyl overdose?
One of the things very clearly is the fact that we shouldn't just have one day a week with the faith community. We should set up seminars and workshops throughout the week so that we can invite persons in like we have here on today. And through those workshops and seminars, we can help our to really know how to identify your young people or your children and know what's going on in their life. And then there should be a serious relationship with young people and their families. And in so doing, then I'm convinced that we should also monitor our young people to see what's going on in their life. So often we do not know what our young people are doing. We do not keep a close check on them, and that close check on them can be with love, but it also can be very serious to know their life. Well, let me just express one thing, and I'm old-fashioned. My parents used to check it. I might be asleep. They go and open my pockets. They check the mattress. They check the pillows. They see what was really coming into the home and what was happening in that young person's life. Well, I could just simply say it paid off, and I think if we do some of those things even today with the faith community, and then with the faith community, see more people than any other agency throughout the week. So we must take advantage of that and help to make a difference in people's lives.
Thank you.
I just want to say on a personal note, if you don't know Pastor Miles, you need to get to know him. I've known him for several years, having worked at Fox 4 and done stories. He has literally lived, made that difference in the community. With his community center, he's not just a preacher, he lives out the love of Jesus Christ in the community. And thank you so much for being here, Pastor Miles. So love you, brother. Okay, we've got a few minutes for questions. You may have some great questions. We want to hear those. As Larry King once told me, I used to intern for Larry King at one time. Remember Larry King? He said, "There's no stupid questions, only stupid answers." So we're going to have neither tonight. You're going to have smart questions. We're going to have smart answers. We have Jake and Michelle, I think, down there with microphones. There's Jake right there. And if you have a question, please come up. We're going to get the lights up. I know we've had questions in the past. If you have any questions about something we didn't answer tonight, maybe a personal testimony of something that's happened in your life regarding fentanyl, please don't be ashamed. We have right here, this gentleman right here.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, panelists, congressmen, and parents. Thank you very much for this presentation tonight. My name is Andy Burris. I reside in Lansing, Kansas. That's Leavenworth, Kansas. I'm unfortunately the father of one of those tables of my 15-year-old child who's died. On the Kansas side, I'm advocating obviously for the education of fentanyl, not only for the children, but for the parents too, to let people know what devil the social media platforms can be. But my question is, few of our congressmen I'm working with, we're trying to get the DARE program implemented back in all the counties in the state of Kansas, because right now, I believe there's only 20-30%. And I believe that if the DARE program, unlike you gentlemen, I'm class of 83 from San Jose, California, and it was just Say No and the DARE program. And I guess my question to you is, not being from Missouri, is the DARE program still active in our school systems today? Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're very sorry for your loss, and our hearts are really with you tonight. Does someone have an answer to that?
Yes, sir. I'm going to second that. I'm sorry for your loss. That is tragic. I'm very sorry to hear that. In Missouri, in Fort Kansas City, we do have the DARE program. We also have GREAT. We have that in, there was a presentation earlier, but I know they did over 1,000 presentations just last year in 2023. I'd be happy to get those stats for you if it would help you in your fight on the Kansas side. I can give you my card and help you out in any way I can.
I would like that. Thank you.
I just left two DARE officers a couple hours ago. My last photograph, selfie thing, with them. It is a fabulous program, and I think the community needs to, embrace the fact that it costs money, and so we need to do whatever we need to do in terms of getting budgeted money from the city to expand the program. Chief, you have some fabulous officers doing the DARE program, and you're absolutely right. It is a significant and important program for the police in Kansas City, Missouri.
Can I add one more thing? I worked the Chief Super Bowl parade, and I did work with an officer that worked at Prairie Village, and he actually teaches DARE, I believe, they're starting in the elementary schools in some of the Kansas agencies. So I did just have that contact last week. I can also reach out to him because I know he's I think there was more pictures of this officer than Patrick Mahomes last week. So I could get his contact and maybe he could help you on the Kansas side as well.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Another thing I would say is Johnson County ATF funds all of the school-based prevention programs in Johnson County, and they can get you connected with all of those school districts. I would reach out to Johnson County ATF, at least for Johnson County, Kansas.
Any other questions? We have one here on the second row. Your name, please.
Hi, my name is Shannon. I don't have a question. I just have a statement because I see that there are kids in the audience. This is my son. I lost my son and my niece in 2022. And I take him everywhere with me. And I always want the kids to see, if you don't want your parents standing here like this, don't take things that you don't know what it is from anyone, even if you trust them. Because like they said on the panel, that person may not know what was in the substance that they had.
Very powerful. Thank you so much. Sorry for your loss. I just, we talked a little bit out in
we lost
the lobby. Wow.
Can we recognize the bereaved families who are here this evening?
Several of the leaders of fentanyl fighting groups in Missouri and Kansas that I work with are here, and I think they all need to be recognized. Sarah and I are up here at the tables, but there are a lot of parents out here grieving the loss of a child to fentanyl poisoning, and we need to recognize them.
I hope you know that, it sounds trite to think, to hear thoughts and prayers, and that's not what we're saying tonight. We're with you. We hear you. And together we're going to do something about this to make a difference. And it's because of your courage, Laura and Sarah, for being here again, that we're going to take this program forward. For closing remarks, Representative Representative Cleaver.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for your vision.
Yeah.
For getting all of us together and hopefully imparting some wise counsel to parents who are here. This is a serious problem. We take it seriously. In fact, I think as we accumulate all this data, it puts us in a position to speak more forcefully and accurately to our colleagues. If we're going to stop this death by fentanyl, it's going to take all of us. It's going to take Congress, it's going to take the state legislatures, city councils, mayors, police, and if we are resolved to do this, resolute to do this, I think we can do it. And as my colleague and my friend for more than 40 years, Reverend John Miles, has said, if people of faith are really directed toward getting something accomplished, historically it has always been done. And we can defeat fentanyl. It is not more powerful. It is not more resilient than we are. We can do this.
Yeah.
And thank you again for what you're doing. God bless
Well, listen, as we wrap up tonight, I do want to thank Congressman Cleaver. This is the 5th Congressional District of the great state of Missouri. And while I represent the district just south of here, we're Missourians. We're brothers in Christ.
Yes.
And I think we share a love for the people of Missouri and its constituents whom we serve. That's what we are as public servants, elected to be voices and votes for you. And I'm honored that you joined us tonight. You could have been home watching a Netflix movie in this last 2 hours, but you were here investing in survival for America. And that's important to me. I want to thank Center High School. Thank you so much. Let's give it up for Center High School and our district. Rick Chambers, the Director of Communications, I saw him down here earlier. Our kids were on swim team together, great family. Our panel of dignitaries tonight, I don't know how you top this panel. We're going to be doing one down in Springfield, over in St. Louis. I don't think we're going to get a panel as big as this or as good as this, but thank you so much for your dedication, your service, and your transparency, and your vulnerability. That means a lot. Our resource tables are open. As a parting message to you, I want you each to know that you matter, that you have a plan for your life, and that's set out by God Almighty. God has a purpose and plan for your life. It's your job to find out what that is and make it happen. If there's anything that I have really learned over this experience in this last year or so is that, there's a lot of yelling in America between political parties, between different parts of our society. But we need to do more listening in America. I am so glad that I stopped and listened.
Yeah.
And that you were transparent and vulnerable and wanted to do something. Sarah, thank you for changing my life and for saving lives here tonight. With that, go with God, and we'll see you. Thank you. Thank you very much.